Hi, I'm Lisa from Bright Spirit Counseling. I hope you are having a wonderful day and that you're feeling well. I would like to talk to you a little bit about EMDR. Actually, no, that's a lie. I want to talk to you a lot about EMDR. Um, so, you might have heard of EMDR and you might be wondering about it and what it is, and what it isn't for that matter. So, EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Um, So what that means, like as its name would imply, we're using eye movements while we're reprocessing a negative event in order to desensitize feelings and thoughts about that event. Um, it's super effective. Um, People always ask, is it hypnosis? No, not hypnosis. People ask, is it going to erase the memory? No, not going to erase the memory. It's just going to change how you feel about it, how you think about it. Um, it's just going to give you some relief from negative experiences or negative feelings surrounding the experience. So, the reason why we use EMDR kind of goes back to how we process trauma. Um, when there is something going on that's traumatic, the amygdala, which is back here in the back of the brain, it's sometimes referred to as the reptilian part of the brain. It's like the first part that formed. It's responsible for flight, fight, and freeze. Um, it will recognize a threat in less than 74 milliseconds. That's pretty fast. Um, so once it recognizes the event that's going on, the threat, it throws you into flight, fight, or freeze mode. Basically, it's just responsible for keeping you alive, and that's all it's going to do. So, like, if you've ever watched Star Trek and like there's an enemy out there like shooting at them or whatever, they've got their shields up, and then they shut down all the rest of the power except for life support, and they throw full power to the shields. So that's what's going on. Your brain has been shut down; it's all offline, except for the amygdala. And the only things that are working is that amygdala and your breathing and your heartbeat. Everything else is pretty much not happening. It's all gone. Um, the way that your brain files trauma is very different from the way that it files away normal activities. Like if I went to a basketball game, if I went to a movie with a friend, if I drew a picture, had a nice cup of tea, cuddled with my dog, read a book, whatever, those memories are all filed away neatly like a filing cabinet, right? Very smooth process, really good. Trauma, on the other hand, we take all of these things that happen in the trauma and they're in a big pile on the floor. So they don't get filed. They're just a big mess you keep bumping into, much like the papers on my desk that need to be filed. Um, and I'll get there sooner or later, I swear. So because your brain stores trauma or English is hard, because your brain stores trauma um, in a way that isn't conducive for healthy healing. Trauma is like an injury to your brain that hasn't been allowed to heal. Your brain doesn't have a real chance to heal, and it didn't get a message saying, hey, the danger's over. So, in your body and in your brain, that threat is still happening. It's right now, it's present. Um, so, kind of think about how, like, let's say you're cooking a turkey, right? And the turkey smells wonderful and it triggers these wonderful memories of like being at grandma's house and it's Thanksgiving and all your family is there and there's just all this love and all this stuff. And so just how like that memory can be triggered, negative memories also trigger much like that, except for not in a nice way. It doesn't make you feel warm and happy. It makes you feel scared. um, so like let's say you got mugged, right? And dude was wearing some cologne and you could smell the cologne while he's robbing you. And you go to the grocery store like months later and you smell that cologne and it just like takes you to a flashback or puts you into a panic attack. It's because it's like the trauma is happening right this minute, like it is going on now because your brain doesn't know it isn't. Um, You may consciously know, but subconsciously not. And your subconscious mind is incredibly powerful. So we use bilateral stimulation, which I'm just touching on a little bit for a minute here because I'll probably put that elsewhere, like in a video someplace else. So bilateral stimulation helps create this eye movement. So like when you're dreaming and you're in REM sleep and your brain is processing things that have been, your day or whatever things have been going on, um, REM sleep has that rapid eye movement, right? So the bilateral stimulation creates an eye movement, and that helps your brain to communicate with itself on both sides. That amygdala is able to fill it all in and get both sides talking until they can figure it out and go, oh, that was a long time ago. That wasn't today, and then you feel better. It's like you're relieved because, that subconscious mind can rest where maybe it couldn't before. Okay, so EMDR is 8 phases or has 8 phases. And the first phase, which would be like at our first appointment, and phase 2 may also happen at that first appointment. But so phase 1, we're going to talk about why you're coming into counseling, why you're interested in EMDR. We're going to talk about your history. I'm going to take a history. We're going to develop a working relationship that you feel safe in, I hope. And then we're going to make a treatment plan based on your idea of what memories or how many memories you want to work on and the pace you want to go at. And like, you don't have to work at it every single week. You could do something else, and if you only see your therapist twice a month, then, you don't have to necessarily do EMDR every time. Sometimes you just need to talk and vent and don't have anybody you could do that with. So there you go. So another thing we're going to do during that first appointment in that phase 1 is I'm going to assess your internal and external resources, right? So like how well you can regulate your emotions. I'm going to tell you that if you have BPD, it may be hard to get to the part where we actually do work, because being able to regulate your emotions is important before you start EMDR. And, we'll work on resources that will help you to self-regulate. So that's okay. Don't go around thinking, oh, I have BPD, so I can't do EMDR. That's not the case. The case is we just need to have a mechanism for you to be able to remain calm or to become calm when you need to. Okay, so don't worry about that. So phase 2 is the preparation phase. This is where we go through and we talk more in depth about EMDR, the process, and educate you about the terms like SUD and VOC, but I'll get to that in phase 3 in just a minute. So we're going to talk about specific techniques for coping. Okay. So one of the resource exercises, I guess, that we would use is creating a container. And this is all in your mind, although I have had clients create physical containers to help them visualize doing it. A container can be anything that you can put something in and it can't come back out on its own volition. A lot of people choose things like mason jars or lock boxes, but I've seen some pretty exotic things. I had a client who had this glass container that had barbed wire wrapped around it and lightning inside of it, and the lid, like you couldn't touch it except for just the button that you'd push that would open the lid so you could put things in it, and then you push the button again and it closed. Otherwise you'd get electrocuted. That was a pretty exotic way to create a container. Other containers, I had a client who used a big steamer trunk as their container. A lady used a bank vault for her container, and each safe deposit box each got a separate memory locked up in them, so nothing was getting out of there. So that's a container. And then the other thing is the safe space. So creating your safe space is really important. You want to think about like what senses you're using there, what sensory experiences you're having. A lot of people pick beaches because they're kind of like the low hanging fruit for sensory experiences. Um, you can hear the ocean, see the ocean, smell the ocean. You can taste salt on your lips. You can feel sand underneath you. It's warm, it's soft, whatever. So, you can connect with that on a physical level in your mind. Um, some people pick mountains. That's really popular. Mountaintops, cabins in the woods. Um, I had one who had a hut on the beach. Um, Field of Daisies. That's another one that I've had. Just it could be anywhere. Like one of my safe places is my grandma's kitchen, so I can smell coffee and dill pickles because they made a lot of pickles there. So it always smelled like pickles and coffee. Um, I can see the tile around the sink is pink. Um, I can hear the dishwasher running or the coffee maker. Um, I can feel the table. It's gray and white, fake marble stuff, and it's real smooth and it feels cold to the touch, right? Um, so, and what do I taste there? When I think about my grandma's house and like food, I think about tuna sandwiches and root beer, or else hot dogs and root beer, because those are common things that I ate at my grandma's house. So, you know, her kitchen was a safe place for me. Generally, in your safe place, you don't want to have other people in it. Um, you can have your cat or your dog, that's fine. Your emotional support animal is perfectly fine in your safe space. If you can't think of a place that feels safe to you, you can make one up. Um, you can find something in a magazine, something you've seen in a movie. You could just create it all together. Maybe you have purple trees in your safe space, and the water is pink, and the sun is green, and the grass is orange. I mean, it's all very much up to you. It's very surrounded by your thoughts. If you don't feel safe anywhere on this planet, maybe your safe space is on the moon. I don't know. It's okay. Um, so just being able to come up with the experiences around it. I think the moon would be difficult to come up with sensory experiences to go with it, but you know, finding a place that feels safe for you. Um, all right, so I like to um, go through a guided meditation with a safe space to like help you feel it become very real. Um, so we would work on whatever other techniques we need to help you self-regulate, because being able to regulate and become calm again is very important. Okay, so phase 3 is the next phase, which may happen at that first appointment, maybe not, might happen at the second. I like to do it typically at the session before we actually start phase 4. So phase 3 is assessment, and so you're going to come up with the target, right? Which target are you going to use? Like, we identified several targets in the treatment plan, but I want to know what target you want to use today. I want to know what images, what you saw there, what your beliefs about it were, what your feelings about it, if you had any particular sensations. I don't want you to tell me gory details because I don't want to re-traumatize you. If I could speak English, my mouth is all stuck together. Water's good. Okay, so um, during phase 3, we would get baseline measures on the traumatic event, on the target event. Let's go with target. Okay, so here's a couple of terms for you. Subject units of disturbance, which is just called SUD. And I'm not talking about substance use disorder at this moment, although I treat that as well. But so subjective units of disturbance. So this is a scale of 0 to 10, where I'm going to ask you, how disturbing is this incident, this target, to you on a scale of 1 to 10? And if it's something really bad, it's probably 8, 9, 10, right? If it's something that's not as big, it might be 5, 6, 7, wherever you put it. And our goal is to get that down to a 0 by the time we're done. So like even if we only get down to a 6 today, from a 10, then maybe next time we can get it to a 2 or a 3, and then maybe after that down to a 0. Maybe you never actually reach 0. We really want you to be at 2 or below it for your SUD. The other term is VOC, VOC. This is your validity of cognition. So like when we're talking about your target, we want to know a negative and a positive statement about that target, okay? So you have a negative statement like, I thought I was going to die. And then your positive statement was, I was smarter than this guy was that mugged me. I managed to get away with my life, or whatever you want to your positive statement to be. It's just like, what would you rather feel about the situation? Like maybe you felt really hopeless or helpless, and maybe you feel like the positive statement is, I'm pretty damn strong. Even though your feelings are helpless, I'm pretty strong. So we're going to go with that. I'm pretty strong. And I'm going to ask you then what your VOC is, your scale, your validity of cognition. And this is a 1 to 7. 7 means I absolutely believe it's true. 1 means don't believe it at all. And we want to work at that until we get it up to a 7, because that's kind of important to have that real positive feeling behind it. So the next 3 phases is called reprocessing, and they're all bilateral stimulation while we're talking. And the nice thing about EMDR is you don't have to do a lot of talking. You can pretty much, I'm not going to sit there and ask you a lot of questions. It's just not going to happen. Once in a while, I may give you a question to read, like if I need to redirect where you're at, but that's okay. A lot of times when people are experiencing bilateral stimulation for the first time, and after I've administered that 15 to 20 seconds of bilateral stimulation, and then I ask, what came up for you? A lot of times, the first time they'll tell me, all I could think of was the buzzers. But, it's okay. Because then I'll say, okay, let's go back to the thought, and I might repeat it to them what their negative statement was. And then, we'll give some more bilateral stimulation, and then I will stop when it's time after that 15 or 20 seconds, and I'll say, take a deep breath and tell me what came up for you. And you're going to tell me whatever's on your mind, even if it seems unrelated. It's okay, because it's all part of the process. You may see that it was related later on somehow. So you're going to tell me what's on your mind, and I'm going to say, okay, let's go with that. And we're going to go with bilateral stimulation again for that 15 to 20 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds, whatever. And then I'm going to stop it, ask you to take a deep breath, and ask you what came up for you. And you're going to tell me what came up for you, and then I'm going to tell you, okay, let's go with that. And this is the process we're going to keep doing for a while. Okay. Okay, so also during phase 4, besides giving you the bilateral stimulation and asking you what came up for you and all of that, I'm also going to periodically ask you what your SUD is. That's those subjective units of disturbance. I'll ask you, and right now, how disturbing does that feel to you? And your number could be 6 this time. It's like, okay, we'll do some more bilateral stimulation, a couple more rounds of that, and then I'll ask you, okay, so now, how disturbing does this feel to you? And hopefully it's reduced. Hopefully it's like 3 or 4 at this point. And then we'll, go back, do some more bilateral stimulation, and just go back and do that again. We'll continue to check in with you about, where you're at with the SUD. Okay. So during that time, new thoughts, sensations, images, and feelings might emerge. Okay. So phase 5 is the next one. So when we're done with desensitization, then we're going to install your positive belief, your positive cognition. So that way it feels completely true. We want to make sure that it feels completely true. So we would use the bilateral stimulation with the positive thought, just like we used the bilateral stimulation with a negative thought, and we'll go through that. And I'll check that periodically. How high on scale 1 through 7 would you put your VOC? And then you'll tell me, either yes, it's a 1, or no, it's a 1 and I don't believe a single bit of it, or yes, I feel like it's completely true, so it's a 7. So this is the deal. The VOC should be going up as the SUD is coming down. That's what we're trying to do. So then there's the last 2 phases. So phase 7 is closure. During closure, this is when I will be checking to make sure that you are in a calm state, that you feel like you're in the present moment. And it doesn't matter whether the reprocessing is complete or not. Like let's say you only got to a 6 with the reprocessing with your subjective units of disturbance. If you only got to a 6 and that's as far as you came down, and we've run out of time, or we're coming close to running out of time, we're going to put that negative thing into the container and go to your safe space and calm down, relax a little. And I'm going to debrief you, remind you that you may continue to process all of this for 24 to 72 hours. You might dream about it. It may just, come up a lot for you over the next few days. And that's incredibly normal. But see, we want to make sure that the body is completely clear of disturbance before you go out the door. I don't want you going out the door and then like having this horrible panic attack or something bad happen. So, we're careful about that. So phase 8 is reevaluation. And this is how the new session will begin after reprocessing. So let's say last week we reprocessed. So this week, I want to know how you're feeling about that. Where do you rate this on your SUD scale? Like, how disturbing is it now? How true is your positive statement? So we want to make sure that the stress level stayed low and that the positive cognition, again, English is hard, is strong. And then we'll talk about future targets and the positive and negative statements. So we'll have a target ready to go when you're ready to go for your next EMDR. Typically not in this session, but maybe, it's possible. Depends on how long it took us to get down to that 0. Actually, no. Sorry. I got distracted and that was not what I meant to say. So anyway, we would basically move on in a treatment plan. That's where I was trying to go, but somebody opened the door and that distracted me. And then I just kind of lost where I was at. So it's okay. It's all good. So anyway, that's how a session would go. That's what that looks like. And maybe I can real quick get to bilateral stimulation because it's only been 23 minutes and that's not too bad. Okay, so we're going to get to how bilateral stimulation is done. Let me do this first. The old-fashioned way is this, about a foot away from your face, which would drive me crazy if I was the client. I think that I would want to grab that hand and make it stop because it's right, like I said, about a foot away from your face. So I would want to stop that. No offense against people who still use that, but that is like pretty antiquated as far as methods go. If we're doing telehealth and we're doing EMDR over Zoom or something where you use taps, some people call these angel wings, some call angel taps. In the olden days, and I guess there's some therapists who still use it too, is to reach over and tap the client's knee, which I don't feel like I would be comfortable doing that with most clients, and I think most clients would not be comfortable with me touching their knees either. Anyway, so much more modern. This is a light bar, and it does this. So, you look at the light bar, causes movement, good thing, right? Um, I've never actually used the light bar yet. It was a gift, and I have the pulse or the tappers. Um, I'll get to those in just a second, but like the light bar, you can speed it up, which is crazy. I think that might make somebody very dizzy trying to follow that. I don't know. Kind of cool though. Um, some people use sound. So we put the headphones on, and they're Bluetooth headphones, of course. And we have a beep on one side, then a beep on the other, and a beep on this side, and a beep on that side. And that would go, the speed would be according to whether we're reprocessing or if we are, um, okay, words. Words are hard. Um, so if we're reprocessing or if we are resourcing. So resourcing, we would go slower. Reprocessing would be much faster. Um, hang on one second. I gotta find my tapper. So this is what I use for EMDR. Um, most people call it a tapper. I personally typically call it buzzers because to me that's much more accurate. Um, And people ask, are you going to shock me with that? Is that going to be a shock? No, it feels honestly about like a phone vibrating. You turn it on. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but like you would take one in each hand. And yeah, I don't know if you can hear that. But so we would go fast when we're processing and on pretty high intensity. And then I would turn the intensity down. Maybe not quite that much. That's way down. I didn't feel nothing. There we go. So low intensity, turn my speed down very slow. So when I turn the speed down very slow, they're much longer and just slower buzzes. So that is how I do that. And some people refer to them as pulsators. Um, the light bar, and I have a pair of pulsators, and the headphones are all controlled by the phone because that's a wonderful thing about that. But the pulsators that came with it, hang on, let me grab those because I don't know if I can get them to work, but they're really noisy. Let's see. Stop.